Let's go. We're live. Still looking black. Let's see. I'm waiting for it to update on the Twitch. Oh, there we go. Yay. Okay, awesome. Okay. I hope everyone's here. Let me know if you can hear me. And once I get confirmation from the chat, I will start with my talk. Let's go. Indeed. Hi, everyone. Oh, it's so good to see everyone here. I'm gonna read some questions at near to the end, but for now I'm just gonna kind of jump in. Hi, I see very quickly. I'm gonna say hi, Small C's, my Miles Cole, Quick and Silver, Cherry Mecca, Dr. Loop, Becca. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so now that audio and picture is all good, and thank you, Quick and Silver, the plushies. I'm gonna show them off at the end as well. But yeah, so I have about 30 minutes to talk about my main topic, which is BIPOC rep in audio drama. I'm gonna go over the pros, the cons of certain aspects of BIPOC rep. It's also my excuse to talk about BIPOC rep in fandom in audio drama, and do a mini rant, but not to say that anything in particular is bad. Just sort of like to kind of have people consider supporting more BIPOC rep in canon audio drama. And I say in canon because I'm going to go into it. First of all, BIPOC rep in audio drama is interesting because it does something that a lot of other audio drama kind of takes for granted or is sort of different from other audio drama. Because one of the freedoms of audio drama is that anyone can portray anyone because it is just a voice. That is a big part of what people love about audio drama, and it's true. It's a wonderful, like, little bit of freedom in audio drama in that people can portray like any sort of character because it is all voice. A similar thing can be seen in like animation. But the interesting thing about audio drama is that there is sort of a trend that I've been seeing, and this is as somebody who is part of audio drama fandom that I want to address a little bit. So, first of all, hey everyone, I'm Motzie. For those who don't know, I do an audio drama called the Hainai Podcast. It has a Filipina immigrant protagonist named Mary who ends up in Toronto just by, the usual means, immigration. And at a certain point in her life, accidentally gets involved stopping dangerous supernatural events in Toronto just because she is kind of used to them. Her nanay, or her mother, is a babaylan or a shaman and taught her a lot of things, and she encountered a lot of weird supernatural events back home, and she knows how to deal with these things. And in so doing, she ends up like helping a bunch of other people, including these two supernatural detectives, her own neighbor, who is this 6 foot, very strong, axe wielding lesbian, and a con man guru who ends up having real magic powers. So part of the thing that makes a lot of people excited about Hainai is our diversity and representation. And I say diversity because it's like if you look at our lineup of characters, our main cast includes a Filipina immigrant, a Jamaican Canadian, half Chinese, half Swedish. Never brought up, but like he's mixed Canadian, and also Mauritian Indian. And of course, the last one is a basically just a white Canadian girl who is a lesbian, and that already you see that there's a lot of diversity there, and that was not necessarily on purpose. The reason that's the lineup of characters is simply because that's her voice actors. And I was just asking my friends to be like, hey, you all want to be in this show together? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And I shaped the characters because we were such a diverse group of people who just so happened to come together to make the show that I was like, I think it would be really interesting if we could sort of base the characters, like parts of the character, on the voice actors, and one of those parts is their ethnicities. And this is, this would be considered like a good representation in audio drama in terms of BIPOC representation because we kind of have a wide range of people. But this sort of happened naturally, and a lot of people don't have that privilege, if I can, if I can sort of say it like that. A lot of people don't just happen to have five people from completely different backgrounds or very different backgrounds and ethnicities. That just isn't how the world works. Except for people who do, you know, who are in the situation where it's like, yeah, these are our friends. I personally was in that situation because those are my friends. Like two immigrants. One of them was a friend of mine from art school. And, that's just kind of like how it goes. And I was very lucky in that. I do consider myself lucky in that a lot of people want to have the representation that Hainai has, but this one just kind of happened naturally. We're just lucky enough to have that. But I want to tell people that part of the reason Hainai is kind of successful in representation is because we do draw from people's experiences, lived experiences. And something that a lot of creators might not know, especially, and I'm gonna, especially white creators from North America, is that everyone has a culture. And that's something, you only hear about from non-white groups very often. But that's not really not the case. And you can see this from white people who aren't from North America. People, like Europeans, Eastern Europeans especially, everyone has a culture, and of course, like North Americans are like, well, then though that's different. That's like Europeans, but their culture's down to your town, your city, like your state. Those are cultures, and I feel like that's where the real diversity comes from. It's from like sort of your lived experience and kind of accepting that you are not you're not homogenous. You're not like from this just that I was discussing it the other I had a talk about mythology and folklore with a couple of other audio drama creators, and it was an awesome talk because we were talking about how like there are certain aspects of like North American culture that have sort of gone against that sort of homogenized people. And one of those things is whiteness. Because despite, you know, the overwhelming like power of the concept of whiteness, it's not real culture. Whiteness is kind of the opposite of culture. It kind of erases culture because it is like like a power system that you must erase your culture to join. You have to suddenly abandon what culture you have to be this thing because it is like a power structure. But then when you kind of realize that that's not worthwhile, you can actually go back and look at what your culture actually is. And sometimes it's an old culture, right? Like it's it can be an old culture, like something like an Irish background or an Eastern European background, like a Nordic background, etc., etc. And sometimes it can be a very new culture and still be as valid. Like it can be the culture of a city in let's say like Wisconsin in the past 20 years. Like those are real cultures. And that is representation as much as anything else because you're not just, whiteness is not a culture, but white people have a lot of culture, even if some might not know it because they have been relegated to this anti-culture of whiteness. And so all that's kind of like that's kind of like where I want your brain to be. It is that you all have a culture and you just have to understand like the differences between people is what makes the culture, and your lived experiences make like authentic representation. And if you want authentic representation of a different kind that you didn't grow up with, then it behooves you to go to other people who have lived that culture and sort of like get their take, because it's not going to be the same every time, but it's always a great way to kind of like look at authenticity, right? And people are nodding along. So I want to bring that up because I think that audio drama is a great way for this to come out. I think that there are certain audio dramas where the culture is not something that is tied to ethnicity necessarily, and I love that. I really love that. Like there are many amazing audio dramas that are about BIPOC representation, that are about like, ethnicity related cultures, but there are others that like have cultures that aren't necessarily related to ethnicity, like trucker culture, like Alice isn't that, things like that. Like that's culture, workplace culture. Like culture is tied to many different things that aren't just ethnicity. But that being said, I also want to bring it back to BIPOC representation because there are two types. Not, I'm making this all up, but like this is kind of how I logic it in my head. There are two types of BIPOC representation that I've seen, and one of them I don't like as much as the other, but it's still not an invalid form of representation. I'm going to tell you why, though. So, one of them is something that I sort of consider like almost like 90s BIPOC rep. And somebody shouted out Old Gods of Appalachia and Steeped in Appalachian Culture. That's exactly right. Like, that is, it's not like a white culture, but it has a lot of white people who engage in this culture, and it's such a distinct and wonderful culture, And so it's like, as I said, like the concept of whiteness is almost like an anti-culture because Appalachian culture is something else entirely. Anyway, so in terms of BIPOC rep, there are two versions of it, and one of them I don't like as much. The one I don't like as much is something I called like the 90s BIPOC rep, which is like you have now solidly, very successfully have this rainbow of people, but are you going to talk about their backgrounds and the way that it differs from your homogeny of often North American like living? No, they just have a different skin color, and also they are exactly the same as you. And I'm like, why? And that's not every show. A lot of shows were like very good at sort of like, hey, this person's different than you, and these are the things that they do different culturally, and this is why like we are all beautiful people living in the same world. And I do love that. So that's the second one that I want to talk about, which is just BIPOC rep as a sort of showcase or as a way to show your lived experience. And as I said, this is not just for BIPOC people, this is like for white people as well. A way to show how you are different from someone, but in a sort of way, in a way that like, expresses like your love for where you come from. And so this is where I'm going to get into a little bit of the mini rant because I realize I've talked through 15 minutes of my time, but my mini rant, and it's not really even a rant, it's not even a problem. I love this stuff. But as a fan of audio drama, I have seen a lot of the most popular audio dramas and their fan art, right? And I will bring up a very specific example, which is the Magnus Archives. I'm a huge fan of the Magnus Archives. I love it. And if you have been a fan of the Magnus Archives, then you will know that even though each character does not have a distinct visual representation, like no canon representation exists for them, except maybe in the RPG, but that's not even canon either. But there are popular ways that people have started drawing the main characters. One of them is Jonathan Sims, and the other one is Martin Blackwood. And here's what I'm going to tell you right now. Because of how popular these representations have become, you are so often going to see Jonathan Sims with brown skin. He is voiced by a white man. He is a British man. And there is nothing in his story that indicates any sort of like thing other than whiteness or Britishness. And so it becomes just an aesthetic choice, right? And I do take issue with that sort of because it's not bad to represent a character like that, but then you suddenly stumble upon this issue where the only reason people are able to draw them like that is because they consider white to be sort of a blank slate, a default, and the lack of an existing culture means that you can start like putting your own culture onto this guy, even though there is there is a culture in this guy. He's British. He has British culture. So it's not bad to interpret a character who has no established ethnicity as any ethnicity you want. It's not bad at all. In fact, I eat up all of the Filipino John Sims representations. I love it. Num 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 num. But please understand that this is not real representation. This is not representation. And so it becomes this issue where a brown Jonathan Sims becomes more popular than canon brown characters in audio drama. And that is where my issue lies. And that's basically like where I wanted to go with this, which is that it is not bad for people to be doing this. It is not bad for people to be representing characters the way they want to see them, especially if they have been given the permission to, right? But I do think the solution, the problem that it like leads into is the idea that white is default and therefore you can play with the white character way more than you can play with any canon character who is not white. And so what ends up, it's a very complicated situation because as I said, it's not even bad. But there is an actual solution to this, which is just to support and listen to and give more attention to actual BIPOC characters instead of just drawing Johnny Sims like brown 10,000 times. So it is such an interesting thing because, yeah, as I said, it's not even a bad thing, but it does kind of lead into an issue where BIPOC characters are sort of not given as much love. And you can understand why. It's because you cannot, or it's not even that you can't, it's just that people don't know how to play with a BIPOC character who has an established ethnicity. They cannot treat them as a blank slate, and so it's harder for them to kind of play with that character and put them in scenarios because they worry about disrespecting this character. But I need to tell you that even if sometimes there will be missteps, I think that you should be playing with these BIPOC characters as much as these ethnically ambiguous read white characters. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's why again the fan art is not bad because sometimes people are like, okay, this character is now this ethnicity, and now I'm gonna like start doing all these cultural things that I know. That's wonderful. My only issue is like sort of interpreting a character whose culture is not explicitly stated and then sort of like because there's not enough because the effort is not put into writing about their culture, and so therefore they should not be, it's sort of like stolen valor of characters who do have writers who have like put in the work to kind of like express a certain culture. And again, not a bad thing, but please listen to more BIPOC audio drama, support more BIPOC audio drama, talk about them, because that is really the solution to this like very small but like somewhat growing problem of people who would rather look at like very often like white stories or white or stories written by white people, often white men, and then you know sort of uh expressing their own like kind of projecting BIPOCness on them instead of looking at actual BIPOC characters. And so that's kind of like where I want to go with this. Anyway, as I said, you don't have to stop drawing fan art of insert popular audio drama character here as BIPOC. You don't. You just have to put more effort and more love into audio drama characters who are explicitly BIPOC and whose writers have put effort into sort of like expressing the culture that they come from. I've done this, but I'm not even just talking about me. I'm talking about a lot of others. And I'm just going to start talking about a couple of like audio dramas I'm going to shout out right now. I actually did an event called BIPOCtober last October, and I covered a couple of them, so I'm just going to name them. Small Victories is one. I believe the main character is uh, Black and Filipina, and that was really cool. They actually won. Um, oh, they were nominated for the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Special Scripted Series Podcast. So that was really cool. And a couple of others that I'm going to bring up are from BIPOCtober. There is. I'm going to scroll down real fast. Um, where are you? Project Gnosis is another one. It's wonderful. It's like so international. A lot of like different characters. There's another one called The Fringes is another one. Oh, there are so many others. Uh, Janice Ascending, Life with Leo. Oh, I'm just gonna name them so fast. But yeah, in general, I just want you all to start looking for more BIPOC audio dramas written by, performed by, with BIPOC characters. Haina is another one, of course. I'm gonna just toot my own horn there. Small Victories, and just yeah, just a lot of really wonderful like BIPOC characters, audio dramas, and performers and creators in the space. So I'm just gonna talk about that. Anyway, I'm gonna read some chats before the end of this stream. I'm gonna go a little over, but not too over. Don't worry. Maybe 15 minutes. I'm gonna read some chats. Um, Sorry, my nose. Dr. Loop says, now I get to hear lots of Tagalog. Yeah. Okay. Quick and Silver says, hell yeah, Toronto shout out. It's me. I'm the weird supernatural events in Toronto. There are many supernatural events in Toronto. I love them. I am the supernatural event in Toronto. Do you know that I spent 10 minutes hugging a dog because I was worried it was cold, while its owner was in the bank? Okay. Dr. Loop said, I wish I'd been there for the talk. It was the mythology talk. It's actually on YouTube. It's on our VOD channel. It's on our in our VODs. Um, yeah. Old Gods of Appalachia, Steeped in Appalachian Culture. Wonderful. Please go off about Desi representations of that character. As I said, it's not bad. It's just that you have to balance out that with actually supporting real Desi characters, and if you have any suggestions, you can share them as well. Um, there was discourse on not drawing John as a brown man. Sir, that is a white man voiced by a white man. Anyway, doesn't matter. I do love Filipino John, and put him in a barong. Do it. Draw him in a kurta, you cowards. Also that. Yeah, Vega, Milky Way Underground, Unwell. So those are some suggestions as well from Milesco, which is wonderful. I see a similar thing happen with trans headcanons. Fans love to trans characters' genders because there's a lack of good canon rep out there. That is also true. Although I'm very happy to note that there are an increasing number of trans representations in audio drama. So think of this talk, replace BIPOC with trans. Similar vibe. It's like if you have a trans headcanon for a character that is cis, support all of the audio dramas with actual trans representation. Yeah, so that one's applicable as well. Um, yeah, so that's kind of like my whole talk, and you can add more questions in the chat. But basically, BIPOC representation audio drama is wonderful because it lets you, explain more about your background. Audio drama as a space is so much more free than a lot of like the more established sort of institutional entertainments. But also, you do have an issue where a lot of people sort of um, a lot of BIPOC representation becomes aesthetic more than anything, at least in terms of the interpretations of characters who have no set ethnicity. But I don't think obviously not many people are not focusing on that specifically, so I'm not going to say that they're lazy. That's not the case at all. But I think that when you are thinking about BIPOC representation, you should be thinking about the people who have put the effort and the writing into representing their characters and engaging with that if you are concerned with BIPOC representation at all, rather than just focusing on headcanoning BIPOCness into shows where that isn't really the focus. And there are many shows that you would enjoy by BIPOC creators and with BIPOC characters that you should give a chance, even if they're not the big name shows. And I think that's something that's really important for people to remember. And let me just reload this chat in case I forgot anything. I'm actually not over time at all. But um, Small C's asks, what recommendations would you give white creators looking to reflect the reality of BIPOC stories and culture in their work? Any particular good resources beyond work, of course, working with people with those backgrounds? Okay, so I I think working with people with those backgrounds is the resource because not everyone is going to have the same exact experience, and you do need a level of like that's where the authenticity comes from. That being said, if you are unable to have that sort of relationship or sort of like, um, it's kind of difficult. I mean, I guess like listening, even if you don't have friends that are in that sort of position, you can look at creators online, YouTubers, essayists, people who have written their thoughts. Because again, all of this is just to sort of look into the minds and understand people from their perspective. And so if in any way you can get their perspective rather than an outsider's perspective, that is already a good step forward. As I said, it is very often important to actually like talk to people who are from that like background. But if you don't have the opportunity to do that, because I know a lot of people don't have the opportunity to do that, looking at works by people from that background, from their own perspective, is going to help out a lot. You have to engage with their voices from their perspective. And even if you are not one of them, having a good understanding and interpretation and sort of an appreciation for their perspective is how you yourself as a writer, because I also ascribe to the fact that you don't have to be from the background to write about that background, but you do have to give consideration, thought, appreciation, respect, and like basically have the understanding that because you are not from that background, you are not an authoritative voice, and you must see from their perspective or multiple perspectives how they see themselves. And that's how you get authentic representation. And you can write from there. And the other thing is, don't, you know, um, one, don't be too, defensive, but also don't be too worried about, like, don't be so scared, is how I would describe it. Like, if you are engaging in good faith, there will be some people who might get mad, but you have to trust your own you have to trust that if you engage in truly good faith, that people will engage in good faith back. And that's always important. And also, yeah, cast people as much as you can, but ultimately, if that is not an option for you, you can still like do good important things. I just realized I wanted to record this and I forgot to record it, and I'm sad now because I think I said some really nice things. I'm gonna ask if they recorded it. But yeah, the core of respect and consideration is very important. Exactly. Like as I said, if you cannot talk directly to someone who is from that background, or cast them or somehow, like try, obviously put effort. But if you can't, like if you really can't, then go like engage from their perspective and not yours, and never like try to attempt to like pretend that your perspective is theirs, you know sort of like just try to like engage in that way. um and yeah, Quick and Silver says, oh, Small C says, we'll give you the recording if you'd like it afterwards. Yes, please. Thank you. Yeah. And Quick and Silver says, people are always going to get mad on the internet about something, so why not take a risk and go for it? Exactly. Like, again, only if you are respectful and engaging in good faith. Otherwise, you're just being a troll. But if you are worried something's going to be mad about something, but you have a genuine good faith engagement in something, then go for it. If you get something wrong, be gracious and say, thank you for letting me know. I will learn, like, just like, thank you for letting me know. I am going to try to improve in the future. I'm going to try not to repeat this mistake. Sometimes people will accept that, sometimes they won't. But for you, that's the most important part, to be able to accept your mistakes and move forward. Like, BIPOC people aren't like magically unracist. Good God, no. We learn to. And so, you know, worry about it just enough, but don't be scared. And I think that's also part of why a lot of people don't want to engage with canon BIPOC characters, because they're scared. And I'm like, dude, engage, engage. Like, even if you get something wrong, like genuine love is gonna outweigh your missteps. Genuine like care to learn and trying to like be better. You're gonna learn. You're gonna learn. You're gonna make mistakes, but it'll outweigh your missteps if you are genuinely like engaging with love and good faith. If anyone has any other questions, let me know. I still have a little time because we did start a little late. So, but obviously, mods, let me know if I need to end. We can talk about this talk, or we can talk about other things. I have these waiting for me at the end of this. Anyway. Nerdy Flower says, oh, Hannah says, Motzie, I slept in and missed the beginning, but this is so good and informative. Thank you. If the mods allow me, I might like post the VOD sometime, at least for this talk, if they allow me. But yeah, I want to make sure people like get to enjoy this. I think Nerdy Flower says, I think it's important to treat your work as living documents as well. I respect creators who go back and fix things when they learn better. Exactly. Like, if you cannot edit the whole damn thing, which you can, but again, it's like time and effort, you can at least put disclaimers, say like this was, like the way the Looney Tunes do, like this was written before we had a better understanding of XYZ. You know, I think that's also valid, but changing it to reflect like your new learnings is also valid. It's all like good faith. Um, Yay, 10 minutes. Yeah, Craig. Yes, Craig, your cookies. Yeah. I'm trying to think if I forgot to mention anything, but I feel like I did like cover some of the things that I wanted to cover. Another thing is, who are your favorite BIPOC characters in audio drama? That's my question. I I'm a very big fan of Samama Khalid from Magnus Protocol. Love Sam. Sam's great. Um, I can't believe you took Craig's cookies. They're mine now. I bullied him for them. Oh, I need to show you all my shirt. Very good shirt. It's definitely not Kermit. It's Knife Salamat. No, it's Kermit. He's gonna Kermit. No, yeah. All right. Noor. Oh yeah, Quick and Silver says those are straight up the best cookies I've ever had in my life. Hell yeah. Noor Trice Forgotten said Dr. Luke. Oh, that's so Noor. That's so awesome. Legally distinct from Kermit. Yes, nerdy. Um, my favorite BIPOC character is actually Donner from High Night. We love Donner in this house. I have a Donner shirt. I wore this shirt instead. I should have. Oh, Quick and Silver says, is that a Julia Drophy original? Exactly. Yes, and it's no longer available online. Sad. I had to grab it before it was gone. Um, I will, I think, talk a little bit more about uh, the BIPOC characters. Oh, it's, by the way, hey everyone, it's Black History Month. So, if you are interested in Black history, look into it. It's really fucking cool. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse. My Miles Kill says, I loved Zilla and Sherman Guthrie from Midst. Hell yeah. I don't listen to audio drama, so I'm just gonna say hell yeah. I don't listen to audio drama. I'm so evil. Um, Non-binary sailor and Trice Forgotten. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Um, I was gonna say, what was I gonna say? The characters from I want to mention some interesting things because it's oh, Nerdy Flower says, Hi Nai is the only audio drama I listen to, so I might check out some of the Recs in the chat. Eyeball emoji. Yeah. So the reason oh yeah, I brought up Black History Month, and I think Black History Month is really cool. I have been looking into Toronto Black History, and parts of that, and and my interest in that is actually what led to some of the characters in Hainai. For those of you who don't know, Hainai has multiple characters across across generations, and some of the main villains from Hainai were from the 1920s, and of that villain group of evil, rich, magical occultists, one of them is actually black. And she eventually changes her mind, but it is actually based on a real black millionaire and his family from Toronto. So that was cool. It is historically accurate to have a black millionaire in Toronto in that era. So that's really fun. So her being rich and doing magic is within the reality. And I love like sort of involving real history with the fiction that I write, especially when they're set in real places. Um, Becca Terrier says, Apollyon and Desperado are big wrecks for me. Yes, Desperado. Desperado is so good. My Miles Skill says, also Roy Mata Manga Kahia from Within the Wires Season 2. Big love. And Miles Skill says, yes, Desperado. Hell yeah. And yeah, I want to mention also a lot of characters from we have a that character from Hainai from the 1920s based she is like meant to be the daughter of a hotel tycoon who is based on the real hotel tycoon who used to be a slave and became a millionaire in Toronto. He is amazing. His name is let me very quickly Google it because for some reason I completely forgot his name. Toronto historical. His name was James Mink. James Mink, he became a millionaire who owned a hotel and a livery and established one of the first public transportations in Toronto. Fun fact. Shout outs to from Quick and Silver. Shout outs to Ibex and Declan's corrective from friends at the table. Yeah, friend at the table. Yeah, love to have morally complicated BIPOC characters. Yes, yes. Morally complicated BIPOC characters are the best. I don't think we're short on that necessarily. I just do think that maybe 10, 20 years ago they were more on the because all the BIPOC characters were kind of evil. Well, not all, but like there was a certain otherness to characters making them evil. But I love in these days, I am of course a big fan of morally complicated BIPOC characters because we get to have fun too. Miles Kill says, Friends at the Table mention, I love when BIPOC characters get to be characters. I think it's more fun when they get to be difficult because they're more like people. Exactly. That's why a lot of people like Spider-Verse, because Miguel O'Hara. Yeah. And so things like that. Just like I had, we have a character who was technically a villain, then she wasn't. Black woman. We have our very complicated main character, Donner. We have our very complicated main character, Mary, who is a wonderful sunshine baby bean and has also perhaps committed murder. We don't know. We don't know. Um, and we also have Jay from the 1970s, who is my favorite sort of pansexual mystery man who gave Alistair Stewart, aka Peter Lucas, aka Detective Dooley in Hainai, a whole crisis for 2 decades because he was totally in love with this gorgeous man and could not admit it because it was the 1970s and 80s and it was a very bad time for queer people in Canada. But yeah, I'm about to wrap up. If anyone has any last minute questions and any like clarifications on the topic, Becca Terrier says, I also rec Kalila Stormfire's Economical Magical Services and Residents of Proserpina Park. Yes, Residents of Proserpina Park. Um, Definitely check them out as well. A lot of really wonderful Asian representation. I'm trying to think of others before I log off, just so I can like tell people more BIPOC main characters. But yeah, lots of awesome stories. As I said, in particular, I am a big fan of stories where the characters' ethnicity and culture are highlighted because I find that more interesting. I find that a wonderful sort of like look into the uniqueness of cultures across the world. But there is nothing wrong necessarily with the characters who have a certain culture but are more homogenized. I just don't find it as interesting, I guess. But there's nothing bad about wanting to see yourself or hear yourself in a certain position, right? Yeah, so people are just like recommending Proserpina Park. I need another season, binge it all in one go. And my favorite that I must mention as I am about to head out, thank you so much, everyone. My favorite is a robot and high-powered lawyer romance called Life with Leo, where where the main character, who is a black woman lawyer, is dealing with the ethical conundrum of having an android man fall in love with her. Because in a future world, it is a rom-com that will destroy you from the inside out. I love it, and it's by Atypical Artists. It's by my wonderful friend Olivia, Octave. Sorry, why did I say Olivia? Oh no, I'm embarrassed now. Octavia Bray. I said Olivia sort of as like on autopilot. That is very wrong. It's Octavia Bray, and you should definitely check it out. Atypical Artists. Lauren Shippen was also on, I believe, who did Bright Sessions. Go check out Life with Leo, even if it's not within the genre that I am in, which is horror. It is definitely within the genre that I am in, which is romance and love and the complicated feelings of being in love with an android. That's not Hainai, but you know what I mean. Life with Leo is very good, exactly. Definitely check it out. And yeah, lots of wonderful BIPOC representation there as well. And, very lacking in a lot of places having rom-coms with black female main characters, which is wonderful on the side of Life with Leo, not so wonderful in the lack of representation. But yeah, I'm about to go. Thank you so much, everybody. I am so happy to have had this talk. I hope I can save it as a VOD because I do want to like share it. And I'm gonna be back for show running a fiction podcast tomorrow for me, later in the day for people on GMT, at 1 p.m. EST for me. So check that out. I will be with some other wonderful creators. Thank you so much. Have a good night. I'm going to enjoy my cookies. Bye. I'm going to trust that they're going to sign me out. Bye. Oh, yeah. As I say goodbye, I'm going to show my plushies. Bye. Thank you, everyone. You are all wonderful. Thank you so much. Here's my P flag bear. I'm just like sign out whenever, guys. But like here's my problematic Japanese man. Here's my problematic um, Mexican Irish man.